New Vegas is an oldie but a classic, however it really shows its age and I know we'd all love a remaster. That's where the Wabbajack Modlist A Blue Moon may come in handy. A modlist sporting over 1,000 mods, all aimed at bringing in a new experience to Fallout New Vegas, largely aimed at the hardcore immersive survival crowd, which is also not my cup of tea, but recent updates have seen this list also cater to casual scrubs like me, so let's dive in and review it, and find out if A Blue Moon is that New Vegas remaster we're pining for. Hello there, my name's Red. I've put hundreds of hours into Fallout New Vegas, and now I've delved into this list, looking at every aspect from gameplay overhauls, different profiles, stability, and much more, all to inform you whether or not this list is any good, and if it's for you. So let's go, shall we? I played the Supercasual NVR profile with the default ultra graphics settings. I'll get to the other profiles later on. We get a nice new main menu with some swinging Frank Sinatra Blue Moon playing in the background. A new game sees you standing in Doc Mitchell's house with some info screens, giving some critical information about the changes to the game. I'd highly recommend reading through it thoroughly. With that, I immediately broke the game by walking into the other room. I got stuck. I just wanted to look around, but I guess it triggers the intro scripting. Starting a new game again, we follow the instructions properly this time and talk to Doc Mitchell, then leave the house to set up our character. We get a great weapons check animation when getting our starter 9mm pistol. A lot of weapons do these cool animations upon first pickup. We have old Muggins here as our hero for today. The character creator is pretty standard. With another monster created, as is tradition, we can get to our stats. The special stats have been reworked, notably nerfing the amount of perks intelligence gives you, and charisma restricting how many companions you can take, so choose wisely. There's a huge list of custom traits you can now take, all with positives and negatives, allowing you to add a bit of extra flair to your build. For instance, Lady Killer now gives bonuses when talking to women, but applies a negative with men. We have our standard list of skills, but tagging them only gives a 5-point bonus and not 15. You can also choose to activate survival before leaving. I chose not to for my super casual playthrough. Now we can get out there and have a look at the world. As stated before, I'm running the NVR version profile, so this has New Vegas Reloaded, a graphical enhancer loaded on top of it, and it looks gorgeous. I really love the long shadows now cast by objects in the world. The color tones are great as the sun rises, though as beautiful as it looks, I feel it should be brighter. It doesn't quite give that blistering heat feeling a deserty sun should be blasting out in a western themed world in my opinion, but I do prefer this controlled tone to something that's over bright and messy. This mod list uses a NVR preset called Caffeine. There are optional performance and refinement mods available for it in the list should you need to use it. I do actually turn the performance mode on later. You'll also immediately notice the atmosphere as you walk down the road. To me, the audio mix sounds much more open and wide, the difference between experiencing something in mono sound versus 5.1 surround sound. With the new graphics and audio combined, it really creates a great feel, even just walking down the road is nice. You'll also immediately notice the extra shrubbery and trees. The desert has been greatly enhanced with much more scenery. This is how the hill to the graveyard looks in vanilla New Vegas, and now this is the much more busy looking A Blue Moon version. The excitement of new things and the jankiness that is Fallout begins quickly. Let us use something we're all familiar with as an example, Sunny Smiles and her little quest. She looks great, and I love the new animations for text in the top left. She also has this brilliant cowboy swagger. More fantastic weapon animations and text above the heads of speakers, a lovely extra touch. Aiming feels pretty good, like my aim decides if I hit or miss, not bad iron sights. Sunny does run around the corner and just disappear though. Turns out the AI pathed her into Judy's bar, which isn't vanilla. Pathing seems to be streamlined, but it didn't quite work out for Sunny here. You can also lean when aiming down sights with Q and E respectively, more immersive enhancements. Gun combat is smooth and feels pretty good, until I kill the last gecko and the game crashes with a runtime error. I'll get to stability later on. Loading back in and redoing the quest, it all went smoothly this time though. The snow globe is still in the graveyard by the way, so they're at default locations, but now they have this nice pickup animation. Finally, there's some nice immersive animations for the crafting of the healing powder too. So you may be wondering, why am I playing the super casual profile first on what is primarily a hardcore survival list? Well see, I've played this list already for some Let's Plays, and my main takeaway from it boiled down to this. From what I played, a Blue Moon would probably be one of the best mod lists out there for New Vegas if it wasn't so damned tough. Now a few things were happening there. I'm not a hardcore enjoyer and was stepping into a very hardcore list. There was also a glitch causing rad scorpions and geckos to be way tougher than they were supposed to be, so it was even tougher than intended. Geckos were sometimes taking almost no damage from shots like you can see here. After 5 episodes I finished, concluding I loved a lot about this list but the difficulty was just not my cup of tea. But here's the thing, the mod list maker actually listened to me, asking for feedback in the comments, which was fantastic of them to do so, rather than just being mad that a casual scrub idiot was playing their list. So the super casual profile was created with a portion of my feedback in mind. You'll still definitely notice this list's distinctive difficulty curve straight away. I can't unlock the safe or computer in the Good Spring Schoolhouse as neither skill is high enough, even with the boost from either magazine. Getting Trudy to help out in the Ringo fight also requires the use of a magazine. Another great animation sees you physically reading the magazine too, or as I prefer to think, you eat it to gain its power. Gathering resources is much more important for selling and to use at critical moments. Chet here won't help out in the Ringo fight at Good Springs either. Selling him collected loot gets me the magazine I need to then read and convince him. You'll find yourself looting more, which comes into play with the lowered carry weight. Mine was 75. A backpack is necessary to increase your carry capacity and satisfy your loot gremlin ways. As logic might suggest, you can find 2 free backpacks lying around at the school. You'll notice red text on a lootable item lets you know picking this up will over-encumber you, a very handy UI design element indeed. The backpack and weapons also adorn your body, another great immersive touch. And the weapon holstering and unholstering animations are top quality in third person. When you die, and yes, you will inevitably die, I found the reload to be super fast. The powder gangers and their large amount of explosives saw to me pretty easily. I did notice a loss of ammo in the corner when falling. Having a look, however, it doesn't actually take away your ammo on reload. We'll look to see if this changes in the other profiles later. As you explore, there's many areas you may be familiar with that look rather different now. A good amount of extra detail has been added with extra props. Other areas like Primm have been overhauled to really add more life to the area. The same goes for Novak, but you'll also notice the fence has been completely removed. The daytime lighting and beauty extends to the nighttime too, from the few lights you can find here and there to the bright nightlife of the Vegas Strip. We'll get to New Vegas in a little more detail later on. Blessedly, the rain looks lovely. With NVR and this good preset, it's hard to beat how nice it looks. But moving on, leveling up has been slowed down. The cap is now 30 instead of 50, with the same amount of XP required to get there, giving you more incentive to complete quests and seek out new ones that have been added. Like when you reach the Mojave outpost, and Elias here has a new quest for you that sends you to the Long 15, a massive new modded area you can now visit before the events of the DLC Lonesome Road happens and its potential nuking, allowing you to visit the NCR in all its power. Leveling up does very much take longer. It wasn't until getting the NCR into and running Primm did I actually level up for the first time. Spending your points feels so much more important now, really making you think about where to put them. The survival skill is a lot more crucial on the harder profiles than it is on the super casual, which, especially if you're not playing hardcore, is how it should be. There's a whole list of new perks with different effects. A fine example of new perks is Balanced Load. You get 10% carry weight increase, but it goes to 15% with your weapon holstered. Personally, I took Swift Learner. It's only 2% increase from its default 10%, but at least it's something. If you're familiar with NPCs, you'll notice some have been revoiced, like Lieutenant Hayes here. The list includes a fantastic mod that adds some much needed variety to the voices of the NPCs, all properly voiced too by real humans, no AI clanker slop here. Lieutenant Hayes is also sporting the new crotch forward power stance that seems to be all the rage. Now out and about, you'll notice that locked doors have health bars. This is because you can actually damage them to unlock them. Using the new quick throw key with the G button, you can lob some dynamite at it until it's destroyed. Bullets work too to finish off its remaining health and blammo, you're inside. Primm's also sporting this new petrol station, or gas station to you Americans. You get the key for helping out Primm. Inside is bare to begin with and the place isn't powered. You get the repair and reload bench outside as well. A generator out back sees it up and running with some parts or skill, and this bench here allows you to add to what is basically basically a player home, adding a grill to the roof area which allows you to craft survival stuff, for instance. You'll notice very quickly that Pipboy has more immersive animations. You physically mark the locations you find on the map. Unfortunately, there is this obvious box around the lit up button down here. I suspect it's to do with overlaid graphic enhancements not mixing with the what is probably a PNG of a Pipboy graphic overlay. A nice set of icons are now on your Pipboy on the left here too. In non-survival, you just get the RADS level. You also get this handy function when hitting C to get a quick look at your Pipboy local map. Press and hold for an extended view or just tap to get a quick look. Although messing around with it too much did this to my Pipboy at one point. Too much Sunset Sarsaparilla in my diet, I guess. A quick save and reload, which by the way is super fast, fixed it. Inside it shows friendly NPCs walking around as well as a quest marker, which is very handy. This includes people like Johnson Nash and his unique trader icon he has too. The UI is very overhauled and fantastic in general. Bells and whistles are abound, cleaned up and looking the sleekest I've ever seen in New Vegas. If you're going for a minimalist, sleek look, I don't think they could have done any better. And with the UI, going into the settings in the escape menu down here, there are two things I think are most important. These are the weapon bash settings, which allow you to, well, melee bash with your weapon, and the bullet time, which is the VATS replacement, giving slow-mo at the cost of AP. And don't worry you weird default VATS enjoyers, it's still there, it's just unbound. Keybinds need to be changed in the Keybinder mod, otherwise they'll reset to the default when loading back in. And thankfully Keybinder keeps the settings if you're swapping between profiles too. But moving on, strength requirements come into play greatly with weapons. I can wield this 9mm hunting rifle but not effectively, nor can I sprint with it out. My strength is 5 and the weapon requires 6 for proper use. There's a pretty big new arsenal to choose from. Most are in keeping with the aesthetic of the world, but there are a few that are a bit too modern for the purists out there. For me, I don't care at all, but I know some people do. Sound effects are all great and enhanced throughout the gameplay too. Ammo type is very much important. Armor-piercing rounds especially, as a lot of critters like rad scorpions are very tough without it. I found the starting curve, even for Supercasual, pretty rough, but once you've got more weapons and ammo to spare, it gets a bit better. And I will say it's definitely better and more manageable since I last played. With new weapons comes new armour too, very noticeable on enemies such as the Jackal and Viper gang members. A good range of costumes adding to the variety this list has in leaps and bounds. And speaking of variety, on the road you come across more travellers out and about, adding some much needed life to the roads that's usually reported upon in vanilla but never actually seen, but now with mods they're there. Speaking of new things, there's even more animations on top of the ones I've already mentioned. For you immersion lovers, at the press of button you can check your weapon's condition, and with another you can check how much ammo you have left. There's also eating food and of course using stimpaks. Though I did notice the weaker expired stimpaks don't have an animation, it's just the standard ones that do it. New animations extend to the crafting as well, like repairing things at workbenches. You now require a workbench nearby to repair anything as well, making you really consider what loot to take from bodies and containers. In general, there's just a lot of little extras to find throughout the world, so here's just a few. There's a touching gravestone for Mathew Perry of Friends fame and voice actor for New Vegas' Benny in the Good Springs graveyard. Normally Maria, his weapon, is there so people can enjoy it without having to, take him out, but this mod list removes it for balance. You can get a blue Sunset Sarsaparilla bottle cap and a dino toy there too, both with their own little fun animations. On top of that, there's Benny's distinctive cigarette, which you can have a little sniff of for some weird reason, and can activate the Game Was Rigged difficulty mode that gives all enemies a 50% extra chance of criticals, for the real masochists amongst you. Sometimes when you loot a telephone, by the way, this happens.
Yeah! Who won the lottery? I did! Smell that air! Couldn't you just...
So there's that, I suppose, and a nice little UI touch is your empty hand crosshair hiding itself when you're not looking at anything. When you're aiming down sights, you can also hit Shift. This allows you to set the zoom in position of your weapon, being exact with the iron sights or changing it to a more classic eyeball zoom without iron sights. Eyeball zooming, the thing that we all as humans can do. There's plenty of things you can customize in the settings to tailor the experience more to your liking, but not everything is there, as I found out. To bounce around and capture more footage, I needed to fast travel around a fair bit, which actually costs water. The amount depends on how far you travel and your endurance stat. Great for immersion, and getting random events that can happen along the way is also great and cool, but I wanted it off. This is one that I needed to go into Mod Organizer 2 itself to turn off. Not a complaint really, just something to be aware of if you want to customize your experience to your personal taste. As an example of something you can customize, your Pipboy light can now be changed. Sadly, the color change doesn't seem to work, or at the very least I couldn't figure it out, but you can maximize out the light range and can light up a bloody mountain. Movement now has a great mantle mechanic. Running up to a low wall and pressing jump gets you over it. No more jumping up and down on the spot feeling like an idiot unable to climb over anything. Melee combat is very different in a Blue Moon. It's probably one of the biggest changes I've noticed. Enemies will rush in, diving into you and getting stuck in to knock you about. It requires you to change your usual tactics, keeping you on your toes, and I found relying on the slow-mo to get my shots in very helpful. I found this mechanic in general just not quite there, and on balance I found it more annoying than engaging. You get staggered and your arms go up in the air or elsewhere, and it gets really annoying, and honestly it's just frustrating. It's just not for me, and only encourages me to stay away from my enemies, which I suppose might be the point. I'm not having an attack at people that do like this or the people that made this mod or included it. I've really struggled to succinctly put how I feel about this, and mostly what I think it boils down to is having my control taken out of my hands. The involuntary staggers applied to your character, and that is what I think frustrates me the most. And if you were able to turn this off in the mod, I would be much happier with it. Also, people can go prone on the ground like Joe Cobb here, and it looks really stupid and weird. This is archive footage, but I found the same happened when I first played this list here. Though that is just a bit more goofy fun than annoying. I did discover you can turn off the dodging, but as far as I can tell it didn't actually do anything. So I'm a little bit confused on that. But continuing with difficulty, things like the New Vegas Strip entry have been changed, requiring 3,000 caps for entry on the easier profile. The harder profiles increase it even more. But it is nice to see at least the Securitrons have been upgraded with color screen faces now. New Vegas itself has been greatly expanded upon, so let's have a look as it's such a huge part of the game. Freeside is now completely open, from the gate to the strip all the way back to the entrance, much like the developers originally wanted. As you'd expect, this is the laggiest area you can find. This is what really tests a list and what it can do. There's a huge selection of new places to visit, and even the Followers Fort is open to Freeside now. It's an area you can easily lose hours in exploring. I definitely found the frame rate dropping, however, as expected. It comes with the territory of a modded New Vegas. Do remember I'm running this at the highest possible settings. I turned on the NVR Performance Mode preset and turned the indirect lighting down to high. Moving to the strip itself, this has also been enhanced. Again, I'm in performance mode now, so it ran pretty well. The entire strip is open. You can sprint down the whole damn thing, as you can see here, which, yes, by the way, you can now sprint at the cost of AP. A little bit of stuttering here and there, but I'd expect this with so many NPCs loading in. There's a lot more background buildings and props scattered around too, a fine piece of work that runs very well. At night, the strip lights up and is another fantastic place to run around, especially with the lack of loading screens. It makes it easier to feel the allure of the brilliant glow of the strip that is often talked about in game, but kind of not really seen in vanilla. It's a fantastic balance of enhancements and stability mods on showcase here. The only problem I had was some lighting not quite working properly, but that fixed itself upon reloading the area. Heading back out into the wasteland, companions are a really great help, and Boone, for instance, had a real nice twist to his recruitment. The person that sold his wife to the Legion can now be a few different people. Side note again, I love the night lighting, though I do wish it was a little bit brighter here. But anyways, when I first played this list, it was Alice McBride. This time it was Cliff, the owner of the shop in Novak. The culprit is randomly chosen and they have a safe in their house with the bill of sale. Sadly, it being Cliff, I had the choice of lose Boone or lose the shop in Novak. I did try and see if someone would take over the shop later, but it didn't seem so. At least I did get to enjoy this extra prospector NPC that was behaving rather oddly, to say the least. The grace of New Vegas knows no bounds, it seems. Giving Boone a little tryout, he nailed Radscorpion rather easily. He eventually dropped to some Legionnaires, however. A Stimpack will revive him. I also took Boone to meet some ghouls to test out ghouls as well. I do like this screen effect of being near the irradiated glowing one. Taking out ghouls is very satisfying. The glowing one was tough, but not too tough, and the monster melee combat is still very decent. default thankfully. Also do note some of the footage here and some I captured for a fight earlier on, both accidentally have the caffeine NVR preset off. It's why it looks a bit washed out, so if yours looks like this, that's what's happening. I totally did this on purpose to showcase this. I did notice too when shooting in slow-mo, your trigger pull isn't instant. It's a small jutter like you're pulling through on the trigger before the thing actually fires. It's a small thing, but it's a fantastic touch that really requires you to put more thought into aiming. There's another extra area above the Repcon row too, a further example of extras added in. All of this is what you can expect when delving into a blue moon on the newer Supercasual profile. I won't spoil everything, so these are the basics. The list does include things like Titans of the West 2.0, which enhances power armor greatly, just for an example. Stability-wise, it's probably been one of the best New Vegas lists I've ever played. Of course, it did crash as you saw, and occasionally restarting the game helped with that classic New Vegas lag build-up. But pretty smooth all around, especially when going into NVR performance mode. So second to last, let's have a quick look at the more difficult profiles. There are 3, casual, the standard A Blue Moon list, and a permadeath one. Permadeath is for those wanting to do a how long can you last run rather than playing the game fully. For the casual and standard, I redid Sunny's quest with the exact same stats as Muggins here. Starting with the casual, I found the geckos a little tougher, for instance the first not dropping to the sneak critical shot and taking a bit more to drop in general. The damage they dealt didn't seem greatly increased. Death doesn't seem to have a consequence either. In fact, I didn't even get that red ammo loss thing like I got last time. Funnily enough, I got this same runtime error crash at the same spot and it happened again on a reload. I tried staying further back and it worked. Perhaps the location discovered animation wasn't liking the fight, that's my guess anyway. This specific crash only seemed to happen here, so I guess it's just part of this area and that's it. Now to the standard profile. When turning it on, you'll see some unticked configuration mods below. Casual accuracy, bartering, damage, and item scarcity, meaning all of those are now harder. Your special and skill points are all the same too. The most notable difference straight away is that hardcore mode is on by default. You can see on the UI here and in the Pipboy you now have food and water needs. I checked in with old Chet here to compare his prices to the super casual list. Stimpaks for instance were 75 caps each. Now they are 137 caps each in the standard profile. I tells ya, it's inflation gone mad, that's for sure. Anyway, to Sunny Smiles once again. The gun didn't feel too much worse, nor did the geckos feel too much tougher. It could be that these tutorial geckos are a little easier too, but I found myself lower on health and felt like I struggled the most here. I also found that I now have over minus 1000 XP, because as it turns out if you quick save or wait, you lose 117 XP each time. I guess that's one way to encourage you not to do those things. Bloody hell. To test dying, I tried out old Barton here with his plasma pistol. I gained 25 cases of .22 LR rounds, which is nice I guess. Again, I think this is just a glitch and doesn't seem to apply on reload. When dying, however, you do lose 50 XP when loading back in, which somehow now seems rather trivial. I am of course assuming the 117 is a glitch. However, it's not mentioned in the Wabbajack documentation, which it should be if it is an active glitch. I'll get to that documentation very soon. The 50 XP on death is very much intentional, meant to be a punishment on this harder list. The list does state there's plenty of extra quests and areas to compensate for this loss. But there are the lists in general. The harder ones aren't my cup of tea, but they're there for those that love a more difficult time and consequences. I think going through these profiles really does emphasize to me how important a companion can be. Getting Boone quickly, for instance, can really save your bacon and help deal with crowd control. I really got that especially on the harder lists with Sunny and Cheyenne being there. Plus he takes being caught on fire like a champ. If you're set alight, you do panic and can't use your weapons either, which again, involuntary action's not my favourite. Though being on fire is pretty understandable. But now finally, let's talk about the installation. Note this isn't a guide, just an ease of use look at what you can expect. Installing the latest version of the list, I did have some problems. The first one was my fault. I went to use the BSA decompressor, a part of the installation process. The stock folder wasn't filled correctly, no executables and such. This is because you need to launch Mod Organizer 2 first for it to patch the correct executables. Side note, it seems S.P.E.C.I.A.L Steam, GOG, and Epic versions of New Vegas are all accommodated for, which is a big bonus. The installation information does state to launch Mod Organizer 2 after install. Not to pass the blame entirely, but I feel like this step should be highlighted greatly. This step is very critical, and it being in a section that reads like a Wabbajack for dummies, people like me who know Wabbajack already will probably skip over it. Along with that, I have problems with the DXVK mod. You need to choose one to activate if you want to get a good boost in frames, but I found the offsite documentation you're sent to be almost impenetrable. To be fair, the main section you're meant to go to is the graphics drivers and Windows, setting up all those things I assume. Checking driver compatibility, setting up your power plan, and turning on Windows game mode. Those steps should really be in the Wabbajack installation guide. Relying on offsite documentation is never good. So to be honest, I kind of just guessed which one to tick in MO2 and hope for the best. Opting for the latest version because sure, why not? The same goes for the NVR setup, simply telling you to go to their documentation and follow it. Again, relying on offsite documentation is really bad. And when fumbling around trying to find that documentation, you might miss that further down, it does actually state kind of how to do it. Though these steps here assume you know how to create an empty mod and that you need to right click and open in File Explorer, and that's where you put the files. Again, everything should be precise, detailed, and step by step. Every pause, every stopgap, every lost bit of documentation, every step not clearly laid out is someone's potential stopping point. Someone who gets to this point and gives up because they don't know how to do it. And no, I don't believe having to join the Discord is the right answer. I firmly believe someone should be able to load up the Modlist wiki and install the list fully without having to go elsewhere, be it Discord or external sites within reason. Lastly, in the installation section, there's an optional shader package mod. The render info text file it refers to isn't generated in your My Games folder until you fully launch the game and get to the main menu. This should also be noted, but it isn't. On a scale of very easy to impenetrable, I'd give this installation process a hard difficulty, simply for the confusing things you can find and some instructions that need clearing up. But in the end, what are my final thoughts on this list? New Vegas has always been very unstable. You can always feel the engine kicking and screaming, but in a blue moon, you can tell a great selection of mods are doing their best to really wrangle it, keeping it in check. The modified Freeside would have no hope of running at all without it. I've gone back to vanilla New Vegas for my podcast to explore different places, and I'm always amazed at how stuttery and unrefined the movement feels. Mods do so much work smoothing it out and fixing the entire game, which is very much exemplified here. While I still find some of the difficulty stuff not to my liking, it works well for what this mod pack is trying to do. Be a more robust and immersive experience in New Vegas. The enemy's melee gets you to rethink your tactics. Bartering and scavenging being more important is great. The economy is balanced and your caps are more precious. Aesthetically, this mod pack really shines. With the great utilization of the already fantastic New Vegas Reloaded, the desert has never looked greater, making the wasteland look so much more full with added vegetation and props. Areas feel so much more lived in. A great choice of immersive animations really helps solidify it all. The frame rate should be absolutely terrible all the time, but for the most part it isn't. Freeside is understandably the worst because of just how much is there. It's the best place for you to benchmark your settings. All the mods adding to the visuals and the world are amazingly picked and well configured. New Vegas is never going to be stable, but you'd be hard pressed to find a better version than here in a blue moon in my opinion. In the end, I think if the Supercasual profile got rid of the melee and made the difficulty basically vanilla, it'd be happily where I'd point anyone and say, if you want a Fallout New Vegas Remaster, then come to the Supercasual profile list on a blue moon. So I would still highly recommend you give this a try if you're in the market for a New Vegas experience. If all the aspects of the combat do actually appeal to you, you couldn't ask for a better mod pack. New Vegas is never going to be stable or the most elegant, but a blue moon is up there with the best experience you can find. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review. They take a huge amount of time, so every little bit helps. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do so is to become a member. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Even that lowest tier gets access to the weekly exclusive episodes too. And as always, a lovely thank you to all my current members, especially the far out on screen here, and especially my spicy tier members. So thanks very much CS Gaming, StageCat94, Frosty 20024, and John Marston 1005. But that's it for now, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.